Raised up in West Tennessee to wear the dress, keep the peace. Brother Ray yelled and I'd softly sing hallelujah. The stranger said I could be a model at 14. I feel things intensely just in my life, all things. The good, the bad, the ugly, the in-between, the confusion over how I'm supposed to feel about things. All of it is just in bright, screaming color. And I thought that was a weakness or a problem most of my life. And I learned just in the last few years, and I'm still learning now, that it's actually my superpower.
I guess I'm silk flowers on your vanity. Is it my...
Hi, I'm Cyrena Wages. Welcome to Southern Groove Studio in Memphis, Tennessee. This is my debut album, Vanity Project.
It's just another man saying I'm a vanity project.
Vanity Project is a title I was given in more ways than one. This album was very healing for me, and it was also really rebellious. I don't think I realized how much of a rebel I am at my core, and I think that part of me was kept very quiet for a very long time. A lot of this record is about the process of figuring out the things that I've been told growing up as a woman in the South that I could finally call absolute bullshit on. I grew up in Tennessee beauty pageants, which I'll die in therapy over. Walking around on the stage with a number on your waist like you're a show horse while a bunch of guys sit there and score you 1 to 10. How could that not seep in to your mind and start to rewire the way that you assess yourself and your value and the value of others? And so Vanity Project, before it was the album title, before it was even a song, I knew that was going to be the concept for the beginning of my career. A couple of the early tracks had been pitched to a business guy, music business guy, and he said before even listening to the songs, yeah, but she's kind of a vanity project, right? And that message was relayed to me, and I was so grateful for it because that finally gave me the little kick in the ass to write that song. And I realized it wasn't just that story, it was also the messaging I'd received from growing up in a small town Baptist church. So I grew up in Millington, just north of Memphis, out near Shelby Forest. It's like the country parts north of Memphis. And at 18, I moved to Nashville. There was more industry there, obviously for young songwriters. And those were some really pivotal years, but I never felt like I made anything I could really stand behind. I couldn't articulate at the time why I wanted to move back to Memphis, but I knew that I had lost myself, that I had become a product on the conveyor belt of the Nashville machine. And it's a wonderful machine that does a lot of good for a lot of people, but the way that I was going about it was removing all of the me from the product. And if I was going to continue a career in this field, I had to return to the source.
She was going through a somewhat similar thing that I had gone through, which is leaving the area and coming back. And that's sort of a story into itself. And so reintegrating your life and that sort of flux, but especially kind of getting back home. And so I think the record is a lot of that. And I definitely could relate to that. So
we're here right now at Southern Groove's studio in Memphis. It was really important to me to make this in Memphis. While I was in Nashville, I was always keeping a finger on the pulse of what was happening in Memphis and who I hoped to one day work with back home. And so my musical director, Joe Restivo, who I met pretty much as soon as I moved back here, I actually just did my research on who the power players were in town and sort of slid into Joe Restivo's Instagram DMs. And I like to say that I manipulated him into having a coffee with me. And then he ended up writing songs with me and becoming my musical director and then introducing me to Matt Ross Spang.
I'm Matt Ross Spang, and we're here in my studio, Southern Grooves in Memphis, Tennessee. they came over and showed me a couple songs, just acoustic vocal, and I was immediately blown away. Not, Joe already I know is a phenomenal player, and Cyrena, of course, can sing. There's a lot of people that look good and sound good, but what are you saying? And that's what really got me keyed in on Cyrena. She really writes from this like personal, open book space that I think goes deeper than where a lot of people are willing to go with lyrics. Like, she's really willing to go all the way there with some stuff and be super personal. And to me, it was like really impactful. And then hearing her sing it so honestly too, and not trying to cover it up with stuff.
He started just to help develop the material, essentially. I mean, we had all these songs, but they weren't completely fleshed out. We didn't have the band fully together at that point.
I think the coolest part of that day for me was that the last song we played for him was brand new, and it's the poetic, soft sort of Joni Mitchell diary entry song. Not the single, not the banger, and that was the one that struck Matt. And so in that moment, I felt very seen and understood, which was very validating.
I mean, she's obviously got all these influences. Like, you hear Lana Del Rey and you hear some of these other things. I actually kind of heard more D'Angelo, which is weird reference, but just, some of this kind of more modern R&B hypnotic drum loop thing. And then the real drums can come in. So you do have like the great King Coomer drummed on this, but he's got some great jazz brushing going in with his 808 beats. And I really heard a lot of that in my head as it went, but keeping it all very understated and stark. And so that was kind of what we recorded first. And it was also probably one of the most personal songs, or most like, looking in songs. So it was kind of a great way to start and kind of set a bar.
Well, honey, I'm too wild for you.
He started just to help develop the material, essentially. I mean, we had all these songs, but they weren't completely fleshed out. We didn't have the band fully together at that point.
He had this song, Carried Away, which to me was very much more pop and like fun, and that was really exciting to do. And they had already demoed that at home with some loops and stuff that I was like, we should just use some of these loops you've already built, even though I don't care if they're GarageBand or some free thing. They sound great and they evoke the meaning, so we should use them.
I am a wild thing. Am I a mess or a work of art?
Originally, when we were starting this thing, it was like, man, we need to do something like a country soul record, North Shelby County, like vibe, but mixed with the Stax thing. And she dug that, she was like, oh yeah, I love all that stuff. And
I'm going back to the city. I'm going back to the old me. I got a new pair of dancing shoes, and damn, I feel pretty.
I think it was really cool for Cyrena to move back home and to reconnect with Memphis players, and obviously for me to meet her and stuff. And we all kind of pushed her to be more her, having those kind of players. Memphis players no one else plays like Memphis players. And so you get that on this album. I think that was a huge part to this record. And when you feel that, it's got that old push and pull of old like Stack records and stuff and high records, but then it has some modern elements to it too. So I think the Memphis was kind of like the fifth Beatle of this record,
On the little girl inside, she's got diamonds in her eye.
As I was returning to myself, and as I was refreshing and clarifying my own reason for doing this again, I was just writing everything that I felt like I'd never been able to say or do. And so there was some old school country in there, and there was a little bit of soul influence that I grew up on, and then there was some like 90s R&B little touches here and there, and there really was no through line. And of course that scared me, right? Because the machine loves to tell you that you got to be put into a quite distilled box in order for anyone to care about it. And I remember Matt saying, it's like, Cyrena, the through line's your voice and your perspective and your narrative. And I haven't thought about it since. So
She played me Back to the City, and that one to me is like Chris Christopherson. It was this amazing kind of like Sunday morning coming down story that was certainly more like they call Americana now, but it was certainly more traditional and should be treated, I felt like, more traditional than the other ones. But the lyrics and the mood and everything was just so powerful to me. It's like the fact that she can write a fun one like Elvis Presley, this emotional "Are We Allowed to Fall in Love?" and then this kind of, you know, Chris Christopherson-esque Back to the City was just like to me, to have that all in one person is pretty amazing. So that was really another one I was excited to cut.
You name your genre. I don't know. We've started calling it music for the river fairies because that feels truer than all the other things.
Robin Hood was like, we need something to start the show with.
My dad drives this Cadillac and the license plate says Robin Hood. And it took me probably to the middle school years to understand what that meant to him. But it was that, you know, steal from the rich, give to the poor thread of fighting for the underdog. And so that is such a true essence of who he is, and also became part of the tapestry of who I feel like I am or who I want to be. I think at the time I was going through something with a male boss, a very dismissive, condescending, archaic, patriarchal situation. And all of these sort of themes were ruminating through my mind, but I brought it back to who I am at my core and what I can hold on to that no one can take away from me. And it was this essence of fight for the underdog, be the underdog, see it to the end and do it proudly. And that came from my dad. And so it's playful, but it's also dark and punchy. And
I'm just so excited for people to hear Cyrena Wages now and hear this fully developed artist. I just think people are really going to be blown away by her because she has these elements of kind of, to me, like, I hate to compare artists, but you know how open and intimate Phoebe Bridgers is with her lyrics. I think Cyrena has a lot of that, but at the same time, she has this cinematic thing that maybe Lana Del Rey pulls from. And then, like I said, again, Bobby Gentry. I feel like there's a lot of Bobby Gentry in her. There's a Southern gal that can really write a story, you know, in a 3-minute song that's really hard to do. Quote Bob Dylan, she contains multitudes, I think, is that, you know, she is one of the most caring, giving people I know. She is just as much worried about like taking up your time or like making sure you're okay, even though like we're cutting her super emotional song, you know, she's very like a mama bear. What I liked about her is a lot of people reach out about making records, and a lot of people like Cyrena don't have a label or a budget, you know, the money, the funds to make a record. The difference is Cyrena, from the minute I met her, knew this was her end-all be-all, and she was going to hustle and do whatever she needs to do to get this music out in the world and to get to perform it. And to me, that is what elevates people from just like, you can have a great song, but if you're not going to work hard, no one's going to hear it, you know. To see her succeed and to see this album come out is so exciting for me because a lot of people worked hard on it, especially her. So to have her do all that, not take anything for granted, and to really push herself and push everybody is awesome.
I like to say I had a bookshelf my whole life that had been gathering a whole lot of shit. And I had to take the whole shelf and shake it really hard and knock everything off the shelf. And it stayed completely bare for a really long time. And I'm slowly and methodically putting back on the shelf what deserves to be there, what aligns with who I am and who I want to be. And it's going to be a slow process of a lifetime, but it's no longer holding things that doesn't need to be holding. This album goes on the shelf.